Hi, I'm Randy Hollenbeck, and this is the Music Roundtable. Today on the show, we have singer-songwriter Nick Marzock.
Randy, thank you so much for having me on, brother. I'm really looking forward to chatting with you.
You meet a few good people, keep them all close. It's pretty hard to make friends when you're a stepping stone. Cause when you're on your way up, everybody shows until your star burns out and you're all alone. They lie to your face, how the hell can you keep it straight? No wonder why they ask what you do before they even try to get your name. I kinda hate LA. I kinda hate LA.
I wanted to get into some of your history. What age did you start playing music, and what got you into music?
I was early. I started at 4. My parents we had a piano in the living room, and so I would just walk into the living room. My sister was going to take lessons, and my dad was going to take it with her and stuff. But I would just walk in and start playing things I would hear, like the Ice Cream Man, the Entertainer, the Ice Cream Man would play. I would play them by ear. So my parents were like, "We should probably look into this. He might be a serial killer, but hopefully we can hone this and make it something productive." So I started piano pretty early, and I would always fight with my first piano teacher because she was trying to dive me into Chopin and Bach and Beethoven. I wanted to play, whatever was on the radio or what have you. So, ended up going through a couple piano teachers there. The first one dropped me. She said I didn't have it. And no bitterness though. And, but then the second one I really loved. So then I kind of like over the years I was playing piano and I'm doing like lessons and such, and my grandpa was a musician. My papa, he played guitar, and he would show me some chords, and I was like, "Ooh, this is cool." And while that was happening, I became infatuated with the drums because I was in band in like 4th grade, and so I would sneak into the band room afterwards. And what I know now is that the band director, Mr. Anthony, he knew I was doing that. His office was right there. So he would just let me sneak in and like figure out the drums. So I started taking drum lessons, but then I was in, with guitar. And my parents, by the way, they sold, the band director called my parents and said, "Hey, you might want to take this seriously. He's not bad on drums, and he's just teaching himself." So my parents sold our living room furniture and put in a drum set in our living room, which was super. I always say, I like singer-songwriters or like artists always have this tough story about how they overcame all this stuff and their family kicked them out or whatever. I always say, like, I don't think I'll ever make it because I come from way too much love. And like, like I have so much support and love from my family that it's like, oh man, it's hard to be motivated when you're just like loved, by your family. But uh so they sold the living room. I was taking drum lessons, and then at the same time, my grandpa was showing me chords on guitar, and I was like, "This is cool." So I didn't want to ask for another thing of lessons because I was already taking piano and drums at the same time. So I just kind of taught myself guitar, and that's how that's become more of my main instrument now, just because it's easy. You can't show up at a barbecue and be like, "Hold on, I'm going to bring in a 4-piece drum set. I'll do the intro to Smells Like Teen Spirit. You'll know it." Uh, so I I just kind of taught myself guitar. I ended up taking like 5 or 6 lessons just to get modes and scales down. But yeah, for the most part, I'm self-taught on that. And then over time, I feel like if you have those 3, like piano, drums, and guitar, they're really great foundations for a lot of different instruments. So I've just every couple months or year, what have you, I'll just get a new instrument or like rent an instrument just to like try it out. And if it's going well, then I stick with it. If it's just like, oh, my embouchure or whatever, I'll drop it. But so now it's kind of evolved into like a bunch of bizarre instruments now, or just like obviously with guitar, bass, you know, you can lend yourself to bass, but what people don't realize is how much technique goes into these things. And if you're a bass player, I apologize for talking like a fourth grader, but um, it's not just that you know the notes, you have to know how to be a bass player. So like that stuff takes time. And so I really like diving into these instruments and learning how to really pull them off effectively. So that was a very long answer to a short question, but that's basically how I got involved in music.
Who were some of your musical influences?
They've shifted a lot over time. Like when I was really hitting like my teens, when I first started, you know, I first became a teenager and I was playing drums now and like started to put bands together with the neighborhood friends. I was really into like Nirvana and Pearl Jam. Like I didn't realize Cobain had been dead for, you know, like 7 years at the time. I was like, this band Nirvana is great, Dad. He's like, oh, I have tough news for you, Nick. So so I was really into like the hard rock. So it got me into that, like, you know, distorting a guitar and starting my, you know, Mueller stroke from like up here to hit the snare drum. And so all of that was like there. And then I heard, this is such an embarrassing way to get into, actually, no, let me backtrack. I became a big Dave Matthews Band fan because my drum teacher was like, hey man, have you heard of Carter Beauford? He plays like a percussionist. He doesn't play like a drummer. He utilizes every instrument on his drum set like it should be. So I started watching his DVD Under the Table and Drumming, and that kind of got me into Dave Matthews Band, which then really opened. Then I was like, oh, there's acoustic guitars. Like, what is that? You don't have to distort everything. So I dove in with the acoustic and started writing, you know, the feelings and singer-songwriter. I had a girlfriend at the time, so I was starting to sing about emotions, and my songs were terrible when I first started writing. I look back on them, it's like, oh my God, get to the chorus, man. But yeah, so then it became that. But my parents always inspired me with great music. They listened, you know, I got into like Bill Withers and like Joe Cocker and Led Zeppelin. My dad loves Zeppelin and like those kind of bands. Sorry, I was just muting my phone. And so it's eclectic. I mean, but also in like my teenage years, I was into like Nelly and hip hop and, you know, like, so it kind of came from a little bit of everywhere. And, you know, then I discovered like John Mayer. I have a very like white suburban guy taste in music, like whenever, you know, the things I grew up with, but like it's evolved over time now to be into bizarre sounds and, you know, trying to figure out like how do they get that mic sound, and, you know, like kind of doing like the Jack White or like George Martin type of thing of like putting a microphone in a trash can to see if that works. But so my musical inspirations are all over the place. I'm inspired a lot by aspects of artists. So for instance, the way Mayer plays, like the way he can make a guitar sing and treat solos like melodies as if he's singing through it, that's inspiring to me. And the way the Dave Matthews Band, the thing I loved about them from the first time I saw them was just the stage presence, like how big of a show that was. Everybody's dancing and jamming, and like I got into jam bands because of that, because there's so much going on. You could spend, it's like if you know football, you can like watch like the left tackle the whole game and like you just can be entertained by that. Like same thing with them, where you can watch any instrumentalist the whole show and be entertained. And so I really love that, and I try to bring that out on stage and make sure I hire people that are really entertaining to watch. But then there's people like Taylor Swift that, you know, is different musically than me. Although nowadays she's doing kind of the Sad Girl Autumn thing, we're kind of in line right now. But like, you know, her career up until like Folklore, basically, it was very pop and stuff. But I loved the brand and the business that she created and her sensibility of how much of a business her career is and how to appear and treat and do interviews. And so there's just little facets of people that I take, and it's not necessarily like, ooh, I like that chord that Eric Clapton plays, you know, and Change the World, that whatever, I forget what the chord is, the I will be the sunshine, that first one. It's just like, ooh, that's nice. I'm I don't do as much of that as I do like just taking little bits and trying to make my own thing using pieces that all these artists do really well.
I used to see you playing out around Pittsburgh. Where did you go after you left Pittsburgh? Like you like disappeared for a while.
I went into a dark cave and I came out with songs. No, so I I was in Pittsburgh. I went to college at Duquesne in downtown Pittsburgh, and I was playing around. I was doing some really cool shows with like Live Nation, where I would do like play like the side stage at First Niagara, or whatever it's called now. At the time, it was First Niagara, and then and opening slots because I have a great relationship with 100.7 Star, and like Bubba and Melanie and Alista and Kelly, all of those people. I had like really great relationships with them, so I would do a lot of their shows. And then I went to, but there's, how do I say this diplomatically without like, Pittsburgh is an interesting town. It's very dominated by the classic rock market, and DVE does an amazing job with that. They're also flagship for the Steelers. If you're watching, you're not from Pittsburgh. There's a radio station that the classic rock, and I believe they're the number one in the city. Which is if that's true, I don't know that is true. It might. I'm not sure who it is, but I thought it was DVE. I think they're the top morning show. But it's odd for a classic rock station to be number one, and that says a lot about the city. It's like this is a demographic of people that love what, like, Donnie Iris, who's a great friend of mine, who like the city has this incredible infatuation with Donnie, and he's a Pittsburgh guy and he's in there. And my criticism isn't that there's this infatuation with Donnie Iris, and I think DVE actually is probably pretty responsible for that because of their bits where they would do the "you can't go down Donnie Iris with wearing that, you need to get your pants in that." So I think a lot of that's responsible for that. And I love Donnie. He's so awesome. But I think what the Pittsburgh audience is missing is this incredible undercurrent of, you go to like Lawrenceville or Bloomfield, like there's so many great artists that are bubbling up. And I know the X does a great job with, doing Battle of the Bands and stuff like that to expose this. But I just think the Pittsburgh demo as a whole is a blue collar, or classically, because now it's kind of reinvigorating to be this, foodie, I hate to use the word hipster, but a lot of, like a very tech oriented white collar town. But the radio audience that really is loyal, which is an amazing thing, is so set on like this era. And there's so many great things happening in the undercurrent of Pittsburgh that I don't think get exposed because of that. And so I moved to New York, and I had some great connections. I actually lived in Connecticut, but I was gigging in the city constantly. I lived with like one of my best friends, Mark, and but I was gigging in the city constantly and making contacts. So I lived, I think it was like 2014 or 2013. I moved to like the New York City area and was playing around there and in Connecticut. And while I was there, there's this actor. His name's Greg Grunberg, who's become one of my closest friends. And I was playing a gig at Pianos in the Lower East Side of New York City, and I look, my phone's going off, and I look, and it's like a blue check mark on Twitter. I'm like, hey, who's talking to me? And it was Greg sending me these messages like, dude, we got to connect, man. Like, you're awesome, blah, blah, blah. So I started chatting with him, and I know he has this band called Band from TV that he's the drummer of, and it's an all celebrity charity band. And it's like, we just had a gig 2 nights ago. It's a lot of fun to play with them. And so I started chatting with Greg about music, and Greg's best friend from childhood is J.J. Abrams. So Greg started connecting me with Bad Robot, and like, so I was flying back and forth to do events and all this stuff to LA, and honestly making like really relevant contacts. Whereas in New York, I was doing well, but just on a gigging, standpoint. But in terms of, the ceiling, it was easy. It was better to go to Los Angeles. So I spent about maybe two plus, 2 years and change in New York. And then I've been in LA now for 5 years, coming up on 6 in May. So yeah, it's been like 7 or 8 years since I've been away from Pittsburgh, but I miss it. I just came back to town and played at Jurgles, which is an incredible venue. I play hard rock a lot. I've played Club Cafe. Like, there are so many great places in Pittsburgh, and there's such a great music community. I I really hope that the Pittsburgh, demographic of music listeners starts to pick up on that and support some of these amazing local talents that are happening. So yeah, that's basically. I keep giving you such long answers to easy questions. Sorry about that.
So you moved to LA and you started writing music for film and TV. Can you tell us some of the shows you've done that for?
So one of the first ones that came through was a Greg show because nepotism works. So Greg was doing the show with Kevin Smith on AMC called Geeking Out. And it was a cool like variety show kind of thing where they would like all things Comic-Con or geekdom, nerddom. And so I got the theme. I auditioned and the people at Weinstein Productions, they liked it. And yeah, so the Weinstein group liked it. And so I did that. And at the time I didn't have like Pro Tools. I didn't know how to, I didn't have anything on my computer. I was using one of those like standalone, like a Boss, like standalone digital recorder thing with like 16 channels or whatever. And I did that show's theme on like a standalone digital recorder. And it was this like rock and roll. Like now when I listen to it now, like spectrally, it's terrible audio wise. I'm like, oh, they shouldn't have taken this. But now I've gotten a lot better at, recording and now that I'm on like Pro Tools and have a like home studio and such. But so that was the one that like really got me because I had a couple years before that did a thing for I was in this Ewan McGregor movie, American Pastoral, and it filmed in Pittsburgh. And so I auditioned. It was an on-camera thing, but I got to work with Ewan in studio on like the arrangement and how it was going to go. And I did that at Red Cayman, which is also who mixed this current record I have out, Disengage, and Jesse Noss at Red Cayman. So I was at his studio with Ewan McGregor. So it really got me interested in this, like, doing music for a film thing. A, money is really great in picture, but B, it's just a different muscle you flex because when you're used to writing for pop or rock or if you're in jazz, it's like a kind of a different monster. But if you're in like kind of the pop world or rock world or alternative, what have you, you're a little used to formulas and your brain kind of gets into these grooves of like, it's like snow falling on a mountain and like the sleds kind of make a track that everybody just goes into eventually. And because it works, there's a reason for that. People want to hear the chorus. They don't want to be bored and switch channel before they know the song. But whenever you're writing for picture, it really was something different for me where I was like, ooh, this is like time signatures are suddenly out the window sometimes where you got to you have to get the hits and do these things, and work on stingers and bumpers and all that stuff to come in and out. And the energy, is important. So it really got that, like, I was interested and I'm in LA. So I was like, man, I really want to get into this. I want to, start learning about this. So, did that one. And then, I've also done American Dad, on Fox, or I'm sorry, on TBS, produced by Fox. And that one's funny because they'll send you like I'll get this script. How's the language on this podcast? Are you allowed to say? So like I get the script and it's like dick jokes and you're like, oh gosh, now I have to make this into something, where it's like melodically and instrumentally. So those two were like some of the big ones that I've done. And I've done a ton of now commercials. And I did a Walmart Christmas commercial in 2019. And it was like an orchestration that I had to, do all the things for. It was sample based, but don't tell anybody. But I didn't have the budget for a 72-piece orchestra. But that was a great one. And that started, really getting the commercial world. I booked stuff like that, and, trailers and such. So it's a really fun. I know I'm missing like 19 projects, but I just those were like the highlights of really career changing things of like legitimizing my role in this world of like doing things for picture as well. And at heart, I belong on stage. Like I'll never not have the craving to get on stage and play originals, but like in terms of the like 9 to 5 aspect, like that one's a lot of fun because it is something that's consistent and regular. Well, it's not consistent. You have to audition and you might not get it. But when you book a job, like you kind of have like a day job in a way, which in music is a weird thing to do. Um, so yeah, it's a lot of fun. But now I'm kind of like steering back now because of this project I just put out. I'm kind of steering it back towards the singer songwriter thing and being on stage and be doing things like this. So again, I appreciate you having me on. This is I really do like the singer songwriter avenue a little bit more than the picture stuff.
I want to ask you a question about that, the picture stuff. Now, do they give you like a scene to watch and then you come up with the music, or how does that work? How do you come up with the music for that?
Yes, it depends on the project. So American Dad, for instance, wasn't. I did that one too. I did that one to just the script. I got the script, and when like I work, so my buddy Scott is on American Dad. He plays Steve, and he's an incredible musician. He's in that that band from TV with me, and so like we'll be given the script, and then Scott and I will like sit down and say like, all right, what are you thinking? And the big one I did was like a whole episode of music. It was the episode was called Top of the Steve, and the show was that the storyline was Steve's life becomes like a 90s sitcom. And so like there were all these like inserts of, you know, songs and such. And they would give us guidance on that, but they would say like, we want this to kind of be like, you know, think Saved by the Bell, think, whatever the show was like as a reference. And then we would come up with it and then send them, and then they would animate to that. I think for animation, it's so tricky, and it takes so long for that show to be animated. It's not like South Park where it's like wide animation or like almost like Flash like, where it's just like the mouth will kind of move and there's not a lot going on. Family Guy, American Dad, like that universe, The Simpsons, it's such fine animation that they'll do the like the roughs that are in like black and white, and it'll just be like a mouth opening and closing, and literally it's just like outlines of characters and stuff. And then they outsource like all the fine animation and stuff. So they really have to do it to the source material. So when I'm working on American Dad, we come up with it first and they approve it. And it's a big back and forth process. But when it's like for a lot of things, they'll just send you the picture and you have to like create it based on what the picture is showing. And especially like that Walmart commercial is a great example of that, where there are hits and there are scenes that change. When the girl starts like running down the aisle and screaming, the music had to, you know, come up for that part. And so they do send you the picture for that. And with really rough dialogue in there, they haven't gone in and fine tuned it at that point. But just so everybody can kind of concurrently be working on it together. And then it all comes together for re-recording engineering. But yeah, so I would say it depends on the project. I think in the film world, the film world is really collaborative, where like for the theme, that's done before picture. Like when Spielberg hires John Williams, they'll be in a room and John will just be on a piano and be like, I'm thinking this for, you know, this. And then, so the theme is kind of set, but then they'll shoot it. And then, you know, and then he's getting the picture back to do the theme too. So it is very collaborative. But in TV's a different monster, where TV is so, aside from animation, because animation's, you know, it takes like a year and a half to make one of those episodes because of how detailed the animation is. But if you're doing like a sitcom or something like that, TV is so rapid fire that it's like you have like 30 days to get done, you know, hours of music, where it's just like you get the picture and you're like, oh, okay, oh crap, I gotta like figure this out. So it depends on the project. It depends on the media form, like the genre of whatever it is. If it's TV, picture, commercial, I've experienced every type of, you know, where I'm getting it or I'm submitting and then they fit it. Like it really does depend on what the project is, who the director is, how big of a role music plays. Like if you look at a show like House of Cards that was scored by Jeff Beal, the music is such a character in that show that you don't even, if you're not a musician, you don't realize, but if you are, like you realize like how much tension is being added by his bizarre chords that are like not even chords. It's like G minor, add 6, 8, 10, whatever. Like they're these weird, but I think it's just he's sitting on a piano and he wants tension. And he's like, this note belongs nowhere in this chord, so I'm going to add it with the strings or something like that. Like that's how I imagine Jeff is sitting writing that. But like, where was I going with this? Hold on. Don't cut this. I want people to see me suffer to know what the point is of bringing up Jeff Beal. Like I'm sure that he is more collaborating with the showrunner and the director of that. And whereas there are the things that are just like, and unfortunately nowadays there's like stock music libraries that's like a new avenue for people to make money, but for like composers, it's killing, it's killing the industry of like composers. Cause why do we need to pay this guy $50,000 to do this film when we can just get a bunch of source music, and you'll pay for it in quality and it won't be as like specific to your project, but it's cheaper if you're doing an indie film. So it's all over the map. Another long answer to a short question.
You did voiceovers too. What shows were you on for that?
The voiceover thing, I was did I do shows? I don't know if I've done any shows. I do a lot of like I do film or like promo or commercial work. That was what I got hired for a lot. And it started in Pittsburgh where I was what was it? I think it was a Duquesne commercial, but it had nothing to do with me going to the school. I just submitted an audition and got cast as like Duquesne University of the Holy Spirit, whatever it was. And it was some, like kind of intense. I'll get close to the mic whenever I do voiceover, but it was something in that vein. And I ended up booking the voice. I was the voice of the Pennsylvania Lottery for like a couple years, where like all their online commercials, like there was one campaign or all their commercials like TV. And I don't know if I was on radio, but I was on TV as a voice. And so it was all of it started with this campaign that like, what's it feel like? So it was like, what's it feel like to win $100,000 with the Pennsylvania Lottery? With Pennsylvania Lottery, the instant you play could be the instant you win. Keep on scratching. So I kind of was in this like a little bit of like a, I go into like a college-y kind of like, what's up, man? Like a party planning guy for that voice. And so getting that booking was good. That I kind of got it right when I was moving to LA. And so when I was making the trip across the country with all my stuff in the trailer, we had to do another one. And I was in the middle of this trip. It was like, we need a pickup on this commercial. So I had to stop in Omaha, Nebraska and like find a studio that did like phone patching and do that commercial. So that really got my like interest in voiceover peaked. And I was like, ooh, this is a cool world because, not only do I like doing it and I have the setup for it and the microphones, it's also, it's good mailbox money. Like if you do a commercial like that, it's every time like 6 weeks passes or whatever the terms are of the contract, you have to renew the contract and it's another payout. So it was kind of sustaining me in Los Angeles for the first couple of years I lived there, just in, residuals. I shouldn't say that. It wasn't sustaining me. It was like fun money that just like would come in and it's like, all right, I could, LA's expensive. I could go out to the bar this month. And then what I discovered though, and this goes back to my time in college, I can do impersonations, and most of them are cartoonish, but there are some people that I can like get pretty spot on. And so I started honing, and it started with my buddy in college that I lived with was named Brian. So I used to do Stewie Griffin every time I would call him, like, Brian, Brian. And every time I talked, he'd like, Brian, I just, I would go into Stewie's voice. So it kind of evolved from that, doing and so I got I was represented in Los Angeles by William Morris, and what they found out was that I can do this. So they would send me on what's called like a couple different names for it, but I'm known as a mimic in ADR in the voiceover world. And so what I'll do is if there's a movie that needs like if an actor like mumbles a line, or if they need to change the script, and like in one of the cases, if I'm covering up swear words on the TV or plain version, they will either hire the actor, but ADR, I forget what ADR stands for, like automated dialogue replacement or something like that, or autonomous dialogue. I forget what it is. It's something about dialogue replacement. they'll either hire the actor, but it doesn't pay as well as you would get if you were like in the movie. So some actors, they're either booked or they don't feel like doing it. So they'll hire a mimic to come in and do the actor's lines for them for either the movie or whatever, or for promos. So I did a CBS promo not too long ago, or for The Neighborhood, where I was what's his name? He was on New Girl. I can't think of his. He was Schmidt on New Girl. I can't think of the actor's name, and he's one of the leads of The Neighborhood. So I was doing his promo as if it's his voice, like tune into The Neighborhood tonight on I forget how he sounded after but I got cast as doing. This was the most work I've done on a voiceover. I got cast as doing both Jonah Hill and Miles Teller for War Dogs, where I was covering their swear words for the TV version. And if you've seen that movie, they swear a lot. So that was like a 3-day voiceover session of me in there doing both their lines. And the thing, I was lucky to book both of them for the same project. Usually they don't do that, but their voices are similar in timbre. They're different pitch wise. And over the years, this is the stuff I had to learn about, really being a voiceover actor and how to control the different elements of it. But for if I go up here, I'm like Jonah Hill suddenly, I could easily get into Jonah Hill. And if I put a little Brooklyn on my voice, then I'm Miles Teller. So so I was doing their lines just like, are you freaking kidding me? Doing this, covering up the F word. It's just like, no, I'm not kidding you, man. No, dude, I'm not, so it was fun to do both of their replacements. But yeah, but then other movies, Valerian, I was a role in that. It was a tortured alien. And the voiceover thing is I'm always at this crossroads where there's 8 different things that I could commit to. And music is being a performing artist is still my number one, but there are these fun little offshoots that I do. And it's another benefit of being friends with Greg Grunberg. He's taught me dude, revenue stream, just do anything you can, get as many, and you know that, man, you're a musician, but you're also doing a podcast and probably a billion other projects. So mine just happened to be weirdly different, where it's music and voiceover for no reason, or producing podcasts or whatever. So yeah, it's fun. I like the voiceover world. It's ultra competitive. I would say it's probably more so competitive than acting, just because it doesn't you can get lucky. I was very lucky to get the Pennsylvania lottery thing, having never taken classes or trained. And I just had to happen to have a mic, and I auditioned and they liked it. But the other aspect of voiceover that makes it so difficult is that there's not a pecking order. There are certain people that are just really talented, so they get booked more. But I was talking to Phil Lamar about this, and Phil's a fantastic voiceover artist. He's every cartoon you can imagine. He was Samurai Jack, and he's been he's Ollie Williams on Family Guy, and he's the judge on Family Guy. But he was also in Pulp Fiction as an actor. He came from Mad TV. Really, really fantastic actor. And if you've seen him, you would know who he is. And he told me the thing about voiceover is if you're an on-camera actor, they want something that's what George Clooney does and how he acts and demeans. So they'll book George Clooney for that role. But in voiceover, they don't want 2 voices to sound the same. Voices are so different. So it's almost a disadvantage if you have a voice like Scott Grimes, who's Steve on American Dad. He said literally he had 2 voices up in that register, and he gets up here and he does the voice. And if it wasn't going to be either of those 2, he was screwed. He couldn't do a different one. So it kind of hurts you if you have an iconic sound to your voice. So you really have to be good at changing your voice or doing different dialects or something. Because if you're Phil Lamar and you've done this character, whoever's casting doesn't want one to be any of those. They want something new. So Phil Lamar will be at the same audition I will be for a character, even though in the on-camera world, that never happens. I'm never up against Brad Pitt to get a role. So, but in voiceover, you are. It's you're kind of among everybody else, even if you're just this really talented voiceover artist who gets a lot of bookings. So it's a tough world. So that's why I don't really dive in fully to it. I'm kind of I dip my toes in the water and have fun with it more than anything, especially when I get to mimic somebody and study how their voice is and stuff. That's a fun process.
that we fought. The shots no longer warnings, putting holes in the facade. Is it easy to hurt me? 'Cause it happens a lot. Am I yours forever? Of acceptable loss. Lay your wrongs down, I'll lay my arms down. There's just not enough to say. I will never be sorry, and you'll never be wrong. The more we're together, the more we don't belong. Now we're locked and loaded with things we never say. 'Cause there's a war to wage, there's a war to wage. We better disengage. We better disengage.
I wanted to go into your new album, Disengage, and you released a song called "I Kinda Hate LA," you know, and there's a lot. It's a positive song, the way you're singing it, but it's a negative words all about LA.
You absolutely nailed it. So that's my that was my so the first thing I wrote of that song was the bass riff. I was sitting playing a bass and I was just like boom ba-boom boom ba-boo. I was like, "Ooh, that's kind of cool. That's fun. That could be like a," and I was experimenting with different ideas, and like I was just noodling on the bass, and then I just did that and I was like, there's a song in there. So I ran over to Pro Tools, laid down the bass riff, and then kind of wrote around it. And the song started off being, "I effing hate LA," but I wasn't saying effing. And I was like, no, I can't do that because that'll turn everybody off. So I was like, I kind of hate LA is funny. It's like, I hate it. I kind of hate it. I love it, but I kind of hate it. Like, so it was that perfect passive aggressive way to like just dump all over the city. And you nailed it too, because I wanted it to be fun. And that was the juxtaposition I wanted to come across in the song, because the whole song basically is about how fake the industry is and the people can be out here. Not everybody. And I say in the second verse, you'll meet a few good people, like keep them close. 'Cause like there are good people here. Like it's like anywhere else, but this is the place that people move when they have a dream, and like, it's brutal. So you become brutal and some people become jaded. Some people get, you start to do things you don't want to do just to get ahead. And like, just because you're desperate and like you're aging, you're running out of money and you're desperate. So like a lot of people end up into this vicious cycle of becoming the status chasers and, like turning their back on people that brought them there. Like it does kind of lend itself, and it's not LA's fault. It's just the nature of the entertainment business. And so I wanted this song to be, but you have to fake it at all times because you're always auditioning for something. Even if you're in a social interaction at a bar, you never know who's there. So like at all times you're faking this appearance of everything's great. No, I'm kidding. Like if you ask somebody in LA how they're doing, you'll never get a bad answer. Like you'll never get like, "Oh, I'm just not," like, it's always like, great. We, I sold a script. Like none of it's true, but there's like, I sold a script. You're just always acting. So, because you never know who's listening. So I wanted the song, and this was my like inception meta moment of the song. I wanted the song's vibe to be the same thing as what I'm talking about. So I wanted it to be this appearingly happy song while being frustrated completely if you break it down. So that was the idea behind the song, is like, let's make this fun, happy song that's just terrible. And so then the experiment was like, how do I playfully and whimsically roast the city of Los Angeles without getting too like specific, and without like, especially in today's day and age, without bringing politics into it, without getting like, there's so many. That was kind of writing that song on a tightrope of like, don't do too much of that. No, that's too aggressive. Like bring it back. And I think I came up with this like nice, like in between where it's not nothing. I'm not just like safely saying like this place is kind of bad sometimes, but at the same time, not just being like, and everybody sucks and you like, so it was, it was a fun song to write. And then, it was also a fun song to produce because I never really have gotten into that for my own stuff. I did a project for Jason Mraz, where I was producing this like compilation record for him with like a collaboration with Build-A-Bear. So it was like a children's record. And so I had producing experience before, like in that vibe of the upbeat kind of like a little reggae influenced pop kind of world, but I'd never put my own stuff behind it. And so learning how to write, the quick, you got to keep up a look, keeping it. It's all like fast, like speaking. So it was a little bit of an experiment song. And then whenever I finished it, I obviously sent it to my family first, like, what do you think? And they loved it. But my test was sending it to Greg Grunberg. And I was like, because he's from LA and he's a music lover and a musician himself. So I was like, dude, what do you think about this song? And he called me and was just like, dude, I wanted to hate it. And I loved everything you said. It's just everyone's going to relate to this. If you're in LA, like you'll relate to everything you said. If you're not, politics can come into play because people who hate California will love a song called I Kinda Hate LA. So like it appeals to everybody. So that was like the takeaway from that. And it was a really fun song. And it was a tough song. It was a challenge, but especially so on this record, I played everything. I had to do all the instruments because I did it during the pandemic. So I didn't have the studio to hire musicians and do all the collaboration and stuff. I did all the instruments myself. So that one was tricky because it's, very like swung hi-hat with the reggae kind of kick placement at times. I kind of get back onto the ones just to make it more pop. But then the bass, like I can play the bass. I don't consider myself a bass player, but the bass was so integral to the song that it had to be like perfect. And so like, that was I had to do 19,000 takes to get that bass done right, where it was in the pocket, but still kind of the highlighted instrument. And so it was a tough song to write, but it was a lot of fun. Once I got the vibe I was going for, I was like, okay, I got it. And then I started flying on the lyrics, and it was just me venting my frustrations to this city the whole time, like lyrically. And it was like therapeutic in a way because of that. It was fun to write and it was fun to record. And it's also been really fun to play live. We've done a couple shows now with it, and I have a great time with that tune.
I want to go on to another song, Disengage. I could really relate to that song. I've been through something like that. And can you tell us a little bit about your story behind it?
I talked about writing on a tightrope. Now I'm going to talk about answering questions on a tightrope, to be diplomatic and, sweet and a friend to everybody, who's a friend to no one, if you finish that quote. So, I mean, but anytime you're talking about a relationship that goes badly, you're going to have this problem of like, all right, how do I word this? So I was in a relationship with this girl who's so sweet, but things just weren't going well, and we were fighting about the same things over and over again. And like towards the end of we were engaged too. I proposed to her. I don't know if I said that already. So we were engaged, and we were fighting, and the fight started to get like malicious, where instead of trying to make your point heard, the fight started getting geared more towards just like digging into the other person, which is like one of the telltale signs that things aren't working out, and like you need to figure it out. So we did like a separation, and like it was her idea. So I was the breakee. She was the breaker. So she ended it. And she decided to separate before she made that decision. And so I was, obviously it hurt a ton. But there's all kinds of feelings that you're in. You're like mad, you're surprised, you're angry, I already said mad, but you're sad. There's just so many feelings, but also then you start talking again to work things out, and they just devolve into the same arguments that then just get nasty. So that song for me was a way to, like a lot of that song is written about her perspective too. Like it was written from her. It was kind of writing about both of our perspectives, because this situation just wasn't going well. And basically the only thing that we could do, we weren't going to figure out what the problem was. We weren't going to resolve our differences. The only thing we could do was disengage, literally, like we are no longer engaged, and figuratively, we're just like, put your weapon down. Like we just need to like disengage from this situation and walk away and go our separate ways. And like I talk a lot about in the lyrics, it's very armament themed, where a lot of like, you know, references to like stepping on shells, which is a double entendre for like eggshells. We're walking on eggshells, but also shells that are spent from like a gun, you know, where it's just like we're firing at each other constantly, looking out for the mines. You know, you don't know what you're going to say that's going to cause an explosion. Like, so a lot of it is armament themed. And I wanted to create a song that was blame on both sides, because obviously from my perspective, I'm right. But writing the song, I realized like from her perspective, she's right. So like, you know, what makes my side better than hers? Like, you know, like, so I wanted to write this song, not about how bad she was, because I could have written that song. And that's not because she was, it's just because that's from my perspective, because she could write the same song back at me. She's not a songwriter, but you know, so I wanted to write this song just about a situation that isn't going to be resolved. And there's just two people that are like, I will never be sorry. You'll never be wrong. Like, it's just chaos by the end. And so all we could do was disengage. And I love how it came out, like from a nerdy thing. You know, I know this is Music Roundtable, so like getting into the nerd side of it. When I first thought of this song idea, it was a rock song. And I was like, ugh. Like, I don't know if there's a place for that. I don't know if that's going to be as relatable. And it started off with just the guitar being like, you know, doing that riff. And I was like, oh, maybe let's do like a little bit of a throwback sound to this. I didn't fully commit to like 80s throwback, but I did like, you know, buy a couple synthwave packages to get that synth sound to do that. And it made it rounder too. It wasn't such a shrill guitar doing that. It gave it a little bit of like, you know, lower mid roundness to that line that softened the song a little bit for me, which was great, because then when the drums come in, they can explode. And that song was a ton of fun to record. It was tough to write. I wrote that song 4 times and they were completely different every time. And it was down to the last week before we were shooting the music video for it, and I didn't have a song yet. And it was like, we have the location, we have the camera, we have like all this stuff. And I had the music down, but my first idea that I was committed to when I booked all the music video shoots, I like was listening back. I'm like, this doesn't engage me. Sorry for the pun. This doesn't engage me at all. It doesn't hook me. So I wrote it like 3 more times in that week. And like 2 nights before the shoot, I was doing vocals and got it done. But the song was so much fun to record because in addition to the lyrics being like kind of armament and weapon themed, I also sampled a lot of sounds from guns and like from like incoming missile kind of things. So like a lot of those reverse snare effects are actually military equipment. So like it was really fun to make those and just be like all those like little hits and stuff. I wanted it to sound like, even the tone, there are a couple reverse tones in there in the background. They're like these like those kind of things. And I wanted those even to sound like incoming, you know, like Iron Dome missiles kind of thing. So, but again, walking on a tightrope, because in today's day and age, gun violence is a huge problem. So like I couldn't overdo that. And that was one of the reasons. I think the second iteration of the song, I went way too hard into the gun references. And it's just like, you know what? It's not about guns. It's a metaphor about how we're firing at each other. So I had to scale that back too. So, you know, it sucks to write in a hallway, but that's the world we're in. And I just, you know, I didn't want to distract from the point of the song by making it about the wrong thing. And so, it was, that was a tough song to write, because I had to really, a lot of these were tough songs to write, because this record, even though it starts off happy, and you know, there are a couple on there that are like these happy songs that are fun and poppy. But a lot of, you know, then it kind of goes into the meat of the record, which is the breakup. And so I had to really get into that vibe. We broke up in January of 2020, before America really had grasped what was about to come. So I moved into a new apartment. I was like, all right, I got my own place. Like it's a tough time, but I'm gonna have friends over. It's gonna be great. I have a 1 bedroom in LA. And then I was locked in, couldn't see friends for 8 months and dealing with just having come off of an engagement ending. So that was a really, really shit year. Just, in addition to death and turmoil and all the stuff that was happening in the world inside my apartment, inside my four walls, I had just gotten, my heart crushed. So I had to deal with all that stuff, and I had to like get the perspective and really put myself back into those moments, like in the happy moments, to write them and be like, I have a song called Santa Barbara that was our engagement story. And it was about like I engaged with her and like I proposed in Santa Barbara, and it was like our place that we used to go to, and it was like our date spot. And so I had to like put myself, even as like I'm in the middle of just like, but I had to like go back to the happiness of that thing and kind of, but it was therapeutic because then I got to like really process all the things, all the elements, what I loved, what I missed, and what I will miss, but what also I can learn from and grow from. So it was a great experience to write this record. It helped me get over the relationship in a more healthy way than I usually do, with like booze and whatever else. But but this was although there was booze, I mean, we were all locked in, so I'm not gonna. There's a song called "Keep It Together" about struggling to just keep things together, and you have like pills that make you happy and stuff. So it wasn't always healthy in this writing process, but it did help me to get some perspective.
And it felt like closure too, right?
Yes, it really did. That's a fantastic point, Randy. It really put a bow on everything and said like, all right, now. And that's another thing. Like, I don't know that I fully, I'm a tortured artist. I'm a songwriter. Of course, I'll take things emotionally and I'm dramatic and all that stuff. And I don't know that I officially like really closed the book on that phase of my life until the record was done. And it was like, because even when I'm singing on "Still Be Missing You," when I tracked that, it was another single that came out, and that's a really sad. It's very Adele kind of piano performance piece. And when I was tracking that one, I wanted to be super vulnerable, so I tracked it at like 3:30 in the morning or something like that, maybe like 3 in the morning, and I drank beforehand. And I was like at the studio. I Ubered to the studio because I was like, I want to drink and I want to do this from the most vulnerable place that I can. And I also like kind of like an actor would, if they're like method actors, I was just looking at pictures of us before as I was drinking because I wanted to get my voice to sound like it was in that moment. Even though I wrote this from a horrible, vulnerable place, a lot of time had passed since I wrote it. And I was already like, it was beginning of this year when I tracked that one. So there had already been a year that passed. I'm, happy again and all. So I had to get myself back into that place and to record it. So I really did. Like, I was watching like videos that we took on our cell phones of us and stuff, like, and drinking to get myself back in there. And I was actually crying while recording that song, which I didn't want to overdo that because then it's just like fake. If you're like, I'll still be, so I had to like find this nice place where I'm fighting back tears. That's always the hardest thing to do in acting, is like, you don't want to cry. You don't want to be dry. You want to act like you're holding back tears, and that's what sells it. And that's kind of what I went for with the vocals of that. And it wasn't completely by design. I wanted to sound vulnerable, but I started to choke up as I was singing it. And it worked, and it came through. And I was like, I literally like listened back to it, and I was just like still like drying up. And I was like, yeah, I'm not even doing, I think I did 2 takes of that song and I was like done. So yeah, it was a challenge to write all these songs, and I had to get vulnerable. I had to be angry at times, like Disengage. I had to sound a little bit angrier than I do. Santa Barbara, I had to be happy. And like, it's a journey. This record is a journey, and I'm excited about it.
My next question was about "Still Be Missing You," that song. I was listening to it the other day, and it made me think about a few different things. Like, I still think about her. Does she still think about me? Kind of like that. And, you break up with somebody. Why is there a rule that you can't still be friends? Why do you have to hate that other person?
What side of that are you on? Are you on the, like, you still want to be friends?
Yes.
Okay. So you and I, you and I would be at odds about that. And it's not that I don't want to be, it's that I can't. I'm such a tortured soul that if they're in my atmosphere, I'm going to be tortured by that. And so like I'm usually the one, like if it's like a girl that, we go on a couple dates, or, we, date for a couple months, I'm not like that. Like I could absolutely still be friends. But if it's like this one was, where it's 4 years, a year of that being engaged, I have a really hard time seeing her in the wild. So like I'll usually be the one, and it's so cheap and immature and stupid, but I'm always the one to like unfollow, and it's not because I'm bitter. I just don't want to see I don't want to see when she has a new guy that she's hanging out with. I'll be devastated by that, and I know that. So, and that'll just set me back in my, like, getting over process. But you do bring up a great thing, a great point of wondering, does she still think about you? Like all those things. And that song was most inspired by, like, right after we break up, everybody who you're friends with, if when you go through a breakup, is going to sour grapes and like say the cliche stupid things that are just like, you know what, you are so much better off, and like, dude, all you need is time, like you'll get better, like all these things that are coming from a nice place, they're coming from a helpful place, but they do absolute dog shit to help you when you're in those moments, because you want to, like, all you're thinking about is how horrible your little universe is in this moment. And some of those things might make you feel better for 10 minutes, because like sometimes you get the friend that's like almost like a lawyer, and they're like walking you through the pragmatic reasons why you're better off, and they make you feel good for 10 minutes. But then like you just think of one memory, and like it's like that conversation never happened, even though it's still in your like zeitgeist. You still are like, oh yeah, but I don't have her. Like at the end of the day, I don't have who I was in love with. So this song was really inspired by that, where I was in these moments, and I'm just like, I started the music video with this like clock ticking and just like ambient sounds in the room, and like the nighttime in the city. And that's like, whenever I wrote the song, I like jotted that down, like where I was when I was thinking of this song. And I was just sitting there in my living room, and it was dead silent. And I was sitting on the couch, and I just hear the clock ticking, and I'm hearing crickets outside. And it's just like that moment was what I wanted to capture in these lyrics, where it's like, it's just you at the end of the night, and you're sitting there, you've gotten all this advice. They say that time will make it easy. They say that, well, real love is everlasting. They say that life goes on, all these things, and all the advice and pieces of that you get. But like, every verse starts off with that. They say that life goes on without you. Just hide your phone, do these things, forget how much I cared about you. You'll get over it. But then at the end of the verse, it's like, but on my own, maybe years down the road, I'll still be missing you. Like there's nothing that anyone can say in those moments to spin your mind in a different direction and make you start getting over these things. So that's really what that was what I wanted to like get from that song and bring out, was just the vulnerability of the quiet room that you're sitting in, processing this disaster that is currently happening to you. So another tough one to write. And that was one of the songs, like a lot of these songs, Disengage is a great example. I spent months reflecting and getting perspective so that I didn't just come out with a whiny, biased, slamming record, because I would have done that if it was like right after we broke up and I just started writing. Like I would have come out with a different record that wouldn't have been true to A, who I am, and B, the situation. And so I wanted to give perspective, but Still Be Missing You and Deep, which is another one on the record that's like Still Be Missing You in terms of the emotional, vulnerability of it. I wrote those ones right after, because I kind of said to myself, like, the sad ones you could write now, like just don't write the angry ones now. But the sad ones, go for it and let it rip. And so I just sat on my couch as the clock was ticking, and I was just like listening to the crickets and the clock, and I was drinking, guaranteed I was drinking when I wrote that song. And had like a whiskey or 2 or 7 or whatever it was. But and I wrote that song, and it's like, It's funny now, like I'll have like family members or friends reach out and they're like, and after the Still Be Missing You video came out, and they're like, "Are you okay? Like, my gosh, are you?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine now." Like, ask me a year and a half ago when I wrote this song. That was a different story. But like in that moment, even when I was writing it, once I started putting it down, like therapists will sometimes say, like, if you're angry at somebody, write them a letter and then throw it away. And like this song was similar to that, where like just the motions of getting my thoughts concretely down gave me this little outlet that I was feeling so much better as I was writing it. And so that really got my like writing muscle engaged with like, all right, let's get it all out now. Let's get these sad ones out. Because, and there was stay there. I'm sorry. There was deep and Still Be Missing You. And there were probably 8 more that were just like it that I wrote for this record that I ended up just taking Deep and Still Be Missing You, because I thought those were the 2 strongest. And I didn't want this whole record to just be like, never mind, I'll find someone like, I didn't want the whole thing to just be Adele covers. Um, but those were the ones that I was like really excited about. I thought they were the most vulnerable and they were the most honest, which is what you want these kind of songs to be, because then people relate to it. It's like, if you get a little too, abstract and ethereal with your songwriting, then people don't connect with it. I just wanted to say what I was thinking and just come right out and find a way to creatively phrase it and rhyme it and stuff. But don't say like, my heart lurks in the bushes, and it like, just once you started metaphors on these kind of songs, you lost the audience. It's like, well, what are you talking about? So this one was just like, they say that time will make it easy. And I was hearing the clock, and that was the first thing I thought of. Like, they say that time will make it easy, and listen to the silence and wonder what it's trying to teach me. And I was like, ooh, all right, now we're rolling. And then I started going. And I usually will write a chorus first just to then build around. But this one I wrote the verses first, because I had these ideas of, they say that. Okay, what do they say? And how do you connect that to Still Be Missing You? And then they say that, all right, let's bring it back to Still Be Missing You. And the chorus of this song came way later. I put this song down for months before I came back and rewrote the chorus. And I love how it came out too. It did the thing I wanted it to do, was just be this song that plays with depth and space, where like it starts off as just a piano and my voice is like in your ear. But then when the choruses start, it's almost like there's a spotlight on me, and then like suddenly the backlights kick on and there's way more going on back there than you realize. And I wanted to play with that, because that's also kind of how you feel in those moments where you feel so small and then you feel in a big open space and insignificant. Like, there were a lot of things I wanted to play with sonically on this record. And so that one was one of those ones where I wanted to experiment with those kind of techniques.
After the lockdown lifted and live music came back, did you notice like the crowd more engaged when you played out?
Yes, especially the first couple, where it was like what was the first gig I did after live? I'm trying to think of like the first one. It was I feel like it wasn't in California. It was where the heck was I when I played? I played like an acoustic show, and I was like, not only was the crowd different, I was different, where it was just so fun to play again. I think I was in Connecticut playing a show. That might have been the first one afterwards. And it was like an outdoor thing, so it was safe. And yeah, the engagement was amazing, because people just were, I think that there was this period of time where people took it for granted so much. And now they could go out. Like, my sister went to a Dave Matthews Band concert. And she said on this summer tour they just did, and it was her first like big concert back. And she said like some of the people were crying in the audience, because it's like, you don't realize like how accessible that was until you can't do it anymore. And then it's like, that's such a part of who we are. And it's not even just like the music and the power of the kick drum and all that stuff. It's just, I think it's more so about people in the crowd connecting with each other to this vessel. And that's more what it is, because when I was like, I think that first show back, I was doing like covers, but people were just like so into it, and they're more into it because it's not because of me. It's because they're dancing and having fun listening to music with each other. And you couldn't do that. And that is something that is like such a blessing that we take for granted. And like, now that we're, some places are more back than others. Like I'm in California, and it's not nearly as back as, when I was in Pittsburgh. Like people in Pittsburgh, it's like, what masks? We don't know what that is. In California, it's just like, you better have a mask on. But so we're definitely more cautious out here. So I don't know that I've felt it as much in California, although I did an album release, and it was like a private show, and people were in masks and, vaccinated and the whole deal. But it just was electric in the building, because it was like, finally, like, not only was I putting this project out, and it was the first time I was playing these songs with a band live, it was also the first time people could, hear me play them. And like, there's some people that had heard the music. My parents flew out for it. So like, they had been hearing these songs for months as I was sending them the ideas and such, and they got to hear it live. And there is definitely an energy that is, I think, has so much to do with the communal ability to enjoy music together. So I wonder how quickly that's going to fade. It's like when a new single comes out, when everyone's just like, this is the best song I've ever heard. And then they spin it so much on their own radio, in 3 weeks, they're sick of it. So I wonder, how quickly it will be, because we're humans and we're idiots and have such a short-term memory. We'll just be like, yeah, okay, there's who's coming to town. I love them. I don't feel like it. So I don't know how long it'll last, but right now it's like, definitely the golden age of like crowd energy, because there's just, everyone's so excited to be somewhere.
Where could we get a hold of you at? Facebook, Instagram, Twitter?
All of the above. It's a music industry that it's like the everything but the music industry now, and it's like the social media industry. I actually have an anecdote about that. So a couple years ago, I was at a major label, and I was testing in front of like one of the high executives of the label, and there's a mural at their label in the lobby. It's the giant mural of the founder, and it says like, I created such and such because I wanted to like invest in music I believe in and listen to artists that I like, or something like that. So that's the backdrop of my view. The foreground is this executive telling me, we love your songs. We are very interested in you as a songwriter. We're not in the business of artist development. I was like, okay. He said, your social numbers are not where they need to be. And we just can't, we don't do artist development here. So this is like a major label. So 4 weeks later, they signed a girl who got famous from a TV show that she appeared on. She's not like a musician, but they signed her to like a multi-million-dollar record deal as a rapper. And that was like right after, like, she had never done it. And it's just like, this is what it is now. Okay. That was a very eye-opening experience for me. So I realized you're not going to beat socials. You got to join it, because this is the state of play. So you can find me on like the best ones right now are like Instagram, but also, and like YouTube, subscribe to YouTube, and Instagram, follow me on Instagram. I am on Facebook, so follow me on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm kind of annoying on Twitter. I think I'm funny. Like, Instagram's where I do a lot of like the business and the posts and keeping you updated. Twitter is where I like have a stupid joke that comes to me at 2:30 in the morning and I just send it out. So if you really want to know me, follow me on Twitter. If you want to see what I'm doing, follow me on Instagram. And then like Spotify, follow me on Spotify too. That's another huge help. And between all of those things, that that covers most of the bases. I am on TikTok too, so I guess TikTok as well. Like I hate it, but you know what? It is what it is. It is what it is. I signed up for this life, Randy.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you for coming on the show. Do you have anything else to add?
I don't. I really appreciate you having me on, and yeah, I'm excited about this record. Listen to Disengage. It's out now on Spotify, the record, and I'm just really proud of it, and I thank you so much for having me on to promote it.
They say that life goes on without you. Just hide your phone and carry on. Forget how much I cared about you. But on my own, maybe years down the road, I'll still be missing you. be missing you. 'Cause I still wonder if we're gonna change. I wonder how far we've drifted away. You wanted to find a happier place, and I hope that you do. But I'll still be missing you.